What's up, guys? Mitch from RespectMyRegion.com here with another episode of the RMR podcast. Today, I'm joined by co-founder and CEO of Claybourne Cannabis Co., Nick Ortega. How you doing today, Nick?
Good. How you doing? Thanks for having
Hanging
me.
in, hanging in there, man. I know we were just talking offline. You're bragging about the weather down there in SoCal. I'm up here in the gray in Seattle. Um,
75 and sunny down here.
yeah, I'm cold, man. I ain't even been out the house. I've been, I've been in a hoodie. I've been in the house in the studio, and I've been in the hoodie.
Yep.
So, man, well, I kick every episode off about my guest origin story around the plant. You can keep it, personal, of your personal experiences when you first started dabbling with cannabis, or professional, or a little bit of both. It's up to you what you want to be vulnerable and choose to share. But I just love to know kind of your origin story with this plant and the plant being cannabis.
Absolutely. I mean, I grew up in Riverside, California, where I born and raised. Still live there. We were a bunch of skate rats, running around, weird kids and teenagers. And I guess I was introduced to the plant early on in high school, I guess you could say. And as time progressed, and that was early 2000s, I guess that would be. But man, I just had so many friends that just got into it hardcore on the traditional market, back in on 215 days. And I had to, it was just so interesting to me, right? I didn't make it a business like they did, but it was always extremely interesting to me. And when we had Rec Pass in California, I, just was trying to get my friends they were always operating on the traditional market that grew amazing product, to get them to come over and, hey man, we should start a brand. We should get this thing into the rec market, and they just weren't about it. So ended up contacting my one friend Brent, who's my childhood friend and one of my co-founders, and then my other childhood friend Jonathan. We're like, all right, let's just start this company. We'll call it Claybourne, and we'll just rock it. And that's what we did. So back in 2017 is when we started the company. After begging and pleading with so many of my other childhood friends to do it, that were crushing it on the traditional market. But yeah, that's how Claybourne came about.
And what were you doing right before you jumped over to the cannabis?
I've always kind of been a marketing and sales kind of guy. So I was what they call a production or a product manager, global product manager. So my company would basically buy companies, and then it would be my responsibility to expand them globally from a operations and sales and marketing perspective. So that was what I did for the majority of my career after I graduated college. So brought some of those skill sets over to this business, but life experiences also teach you a lot as well. So
Yeah, it's a different beast, but sales are a big part of what's driving this market. I mean, I've seen a couple companies not do very many things good besides sales and be somewhat successful, at least in the short term. So it's a big part of this industry. What do you like about cannabis compared to your career outside of cannabis?
oh man, it's a lot more exciting. Every day is a little different. You think every day is going to be maybe just a normal day, but something always curveball always gets thrown at you. So it's more exciting, that's for sure. And yeah, that's pretty much the long and short of it, I guess. I mean, there's amazing people in this industry. The other industries I've worked in, just not even close to just I guess it's just, I don't know. There's just something unique.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not in the cannabis industry, it's hard to explain, right? Not that you aren't, but there's just this camaraderie about everything. You have competitors in the marketplace, but we all have nothing but respect for each other for the most part in California. So retailers get at it every once in a while, but from a producer and a brand perspective, generally speaking, it's nothing but love, which is really cool, And there's a lot of great people in the industry, both that have been in the industry for decades and people that are just coming into the industry from the outside. Your perspective kind of changes when you come from the outside and realize how awesome and grassroots this industry is. So
Yeah, I think what some you said was unique, like the camaraderie even between brands. I see a lot of my friends, whether they're growers, breeders, own a brand, work for a brand. Even if they claim, "Oh, this is all I smoke," I know for a fact it is. Everybody likes to try different products from everyone else, and so it creates this, I don't know, unique thing, right? Like every batch is a little bit different. Everyone's kind of coming out with new genetics. So cannabis is one of those things, whether you're talking about the community or like the products, people like to just try, even if they have their, you know, this is my brand I stick to, they're always trying new things, you know, and finding new flavors, new genetics. There's not a lot of other, I guess, consumer packaged goods where people do that.
No, it's I guess it's kind of like the craft beer industry, I guess, in a way, in that regards. Flower specifically is like that. I wouldn't say the edibles or the pre-rolls
Sure.
or anything like that, but flower is very much so like the craft beer industry, in my opinion, in that regards at least.
Absolutely. And you know, one of the things that stands out about Claybourne to me is like you guys have a real like brand identity. Not a lot of brands focus on like imagery and like I know you guys do sponsorships, it's all these things and they seem to be in alignment. It seems to, I don't know, some companies like overdo the lifestyle and it seems manufactured or they have no brand at all. And it feels like you guys have like a real identity. What has gone into building that out and what are some components that you feel like makes the typical Claybourne consumer a part of that demographic?
That's a good question. So, um, somebody recently told us they were talking to us about our branding and everything like that. Some of the videos we've been coming out with and things, and their comment to us was, Claybourne has a unique way of meeting the consumer where they are, right? And that's been our ethos since the beginning. Like, we're not trying to come out here trying to act like we're something that we're not, you know. We're also not trying to isolate certain demographics or anything like that. We want to be broadly acceptable, in the marketplace, and that goes through from the perspective of how we put our products to market and our product portfolio in general, and our price points, and then in our marketing and branding efforts as well. So, like when we started the company, right off the bat, we pretty much, I don't know, like 6 months into us launching the brand, we suddenly had a very broad product portfolio because what we would do is we'd go to our retail partners, back in 2018, 2019, and we'd ask them a very simple question, which is just, what products are you missing on your shelf right now? Like, what is it that you wish, if you were me, right? If you were sitting trying to pitch yourself, what would you like to be pitched on, right? Like, what is missing on your shelf? And things like the Power Pack came out of that. Things like the premium small buds came out of that, right? We really innovated that product segment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Enhancing the flower experience with high quality keef with the Power Pack and the Power Stack, for example. Point being, our product portfolio is a replication of our marketing efforts in the sense that we're not trying to be everything to everybody, right? But we want to be approachable and consumable by everybody, both from the product portfolio and from the athletes and the ambassadors that we align ourselves with. We're not just sticking to the hip hop stuff or anything like that, right? It seems like we're trying to be out of the box, but really we're just being us, I guess you could say, because everybody smokes weed for the most part. And what we're trying to do is just capture them at the price point that they feel comfortable with, right? We got our gold cuts. You could buy 8 for $75. You got the private stock 8s you could buy for $50. Or you got the Power Packs you could buy for, $35, $40. So we're trying to capture the consumers every price point, and then we offer the large format sizes for like the medical consumers or just the real heavy users that need that price break on larger formats, and they're willing to buy an ounce a week or whatever because we're giving them a discount to do it. So there's a lot of innovations that we came out with that maybe don't seem very innovative from the outside looking in, but the reality is we're kind of some of the first ones to do these unique things with our products. And now we're rolling that same mindset into the ambassadors that we align ourselves with. So specifically like Eli Noguchia, he's a bull rider of all things, right? And he's a friend of a friend. He's just a badass kid that smokes a lot of weed, and he loves Claybourne. And since he loves Claybourne, we love him. So we're like, let's show this guy a little love. So we did a video on him and posted it on our social media, and we're using that in some of our marketing. And a couple months before that, we posted some stuff about Colin Provost, who's also a friend of a friend. He's one of the hottest skateboarders out there right now. He's very much so the Claybourne mentality in terms of like, he's very independent and individual with the way he dresses and the way that he, even his trick selection, even, like he's always thinking outside of the box. And it was just like a natural fit for us to align with Colin. But believe it or not, God Love Colin, the Eli video, just blew up, like, because it was so unique, you
Yeah.
know. And we got bull riders now following us. You know, we got bull riders buying Claybourne. We got Eli, you know, pumping up Claybourne at the rodeos and stuff. And it's just cool, you know. And that just stems back to just we're just trying to be real and try to meet our customers where they are in their life, you know, and not make it all about Claybourne, but make it all about the experience of smoking Claybourne with what you do.
I love, and that's the true lifestyle aspect about it, right? Putting it towards someone's lifestyle, and I love the rodeo. Like in Eli, I think at Hall of Flowers, I think that's when I think you had mentioned to me that was coming. And I grew up in a small town. I'm not a country. I'm from the country. I'm not like a country farm boy type guy.
You
But
got a little country accent.
I know I do, but the rodeo is the biggest thing where I grew up. Like that's the biggest shit that happens all year. And so growing up, you know, may or may not have been involved with the hand-to-hand commerce of cannabis for many years. I can tell you that is a very big market and supremely underserved when you just look at demographics that brands speak to or partnerships with athletes that speak to. Like nobody's looking at that in cannabis. And I can tell you, I mean, all the country folks and rodeo, I mean, they're smoking, man. They're smoking joints for sure.
They're smoking mad weed, dude, and might as well be smoking Claybourne.
I used to joke. I used to tell my friends we go to the rodeo, and I've never been a cigarette smoker, but I would take a cigarette and I would you know, take out the tobacco and then I'd plug it full of weed. And so I more than a few occasions I might have been at a rodeo somewhere walking around smoking what looked like a cigarette, but it was full of weed.
Yeah. Well, see, I mean, it may not be attractive to everybody, but the people that it is attracted to really get it, you know. And that's part of what you're trying to do as a brand. Everybody's after the hip hop scene, which, as you know, I love the hip hop scene, but that wasn't high on our priority list because there's a bunch of low hanging fruit that is just more naturally aligned with us. And you know, my partner Jonathan, he does all the branding and marketing up until this year, or I'm sorry, last year when we brought on some more team members to assist him and everything. But another thing that makes the Claybourne brand authentic is that it's all in-house. We don't use agencies to do our design. We don't use agencies for anything. So it's just a little bit more authentic, I guess you could say, just from the start. So.
Absolutely. And I love the approach. You know, it's unique. I don't think that was a chance of something I've had to previously talk to you about was your guys' approach to developing these product lines, of talking to the retailers and finding out where the holes are. Again, back to my days when I was doing what I was doing, you know, there was more. I carved out. I feel like what attributed to my success in my business wasn't just offering the regular things. Like I made a killing off of like the quarters for a discount, and this isn't even like medical day. This is just like the hand-to-hand. I made a killing off the quarters at a discount. I made a killing off of the shake. I made a killing off of like people just wanted to buy keef or like even trim. And so back when I was working with my growers, I was probably like the only dude picking up packs that was like, yo, could you throw in some trim? Because I could keef the trim and I could sell the keef, and then I could go ahead and sell the trim. And I had a list of clientele that just, you know, they came to me and they could get different products that they couldn't necessarily get otherwise. And I know there's a demand for that. When you guys came up with the power pack, for example, what was the inspiration just coming up with something unique, or was it kind of combining those different elements in a single package? What was kind of the inspiration behind that product SKU?
It was a little bit of both. Like that wasn't a Claybourne innovation, to be honest. That was one of our customers that brought that idea up to us. So again, it just stemmed from us being very obsessed with pleasing our customers, basically. That includes the consumers and it includes the retail buyers. So that was a retail buyer that came up with that idea, actually, where I was like, hey man, like same thing I just told you. What is missing on your shelf? Like if you could come up with your like most innovative product from a flower perspective, what would you do? And he was like, he was actually from Washington. And he's like, man, back in the day, when somebody would come in and they wouldn't have enough money, I'd tell them to go buy some pretty good weed, right? Maybe some smalls or whatever, and buy a gram of keef. You combine those two, you'll be partying way harder than going to buy some super high-end flower product if you're on a budget. And that's what we did. We priced it accordingly, and it just took off from there. Plus, the keef is the best keef out there. So some may
Ab-
call it hash. I don't know, but it's all trimmed in keef. So it's extremely, extremely high quality.
And so, for your guys' product lines, I know you just kind of, you broke a little bit of the pricing a second ago, but you guys have the gold cuts, the private stock, small buds, the flyers, and then Eagle extracts. Could you kind of give me the breakdown of each of these product lines?
Yeah, so the gold cuts is kind of it's our top of the line flower. It competes with some of the leaders in the industry like Cannabiotics and Connected and Inane Labs, right? We're happy to be on a shelf with those guys. And the gold cuts is primarily our in-house genetics, stuff that one of my co-founders, Brent, comes up with. He's a plant breeder, plant geneticist by trade. He's a I guess you could say a world-renowned plant breeder outside of cannabis, and his skill set's now coming into cannabis. So the gold cuts are primarily our in-house genetics, and then we also release like newer genetics from popular breeders in the gold cuts as well. So they're generally speaking like smaller batch, and they're handled with much more care. Like they all get hand packaged and things like that. And that only comes in the 8th ounce package, and that's like the white and gold box. And then one price point below that would be our private stock line, and that's where we start getting like real wide with all the products we offer. So the private stock line is that mid to top shelf eighth. It's $50 eighth, but it comes in a gram, an eighth, a quarter ounce, a half ounce, and a 1 ounce. And then like all Claybourne products, we give the consumer a discount as they go up in size. So, it's cheaper to buy an ounce than it is to buy 8/8, for example. So one step below that would be the premium small buds. So that's where, that was another innovation by retail, really, where retailers were like, man, I need an ounce that's affordable for my consumers, but it's indoor. It's not some swag. It's not outdoor, right? Not that there's anything wrong with outdoor, but I want like a premium indoor ounce, but it's got to be at around this price point. So we just went back to the drawing board and we were like, all right, I think we could do that. And that's where we launched the premium small bud, quarter ounce, half ounce, and 1 ounce. They come in a glass jar. It was an extremely popular product. In some of those sizes, nobody sells more of those products than Claybourne does in California, which is a really cool thing to be able to say. And then the one step below that would be the power line. So the power line is the yellow products that would be the power pack, which is an eighth of small buds, the same small buds that come in the premium small bud line, and a gram of keef. They come with a little shovel. And really the whole point of the power pack is to be able to create your own, create your own high, basically, right? People love the power pack. There's nothing like a really nice, because I don't know, some people smoke those things in like 2 sessions. I'm like, damn, dude, like rolling fat blunts that are, because the power pack has 4.5 grams in it, right? So blunts are super popular product, or super popular, way to consume a power pack. And then the power stack is a little tube. This is my favorite product personally, but my team always makes fun of me. But it's a tube that's a power pack that's ground up, and we call it a power stack. So it's 2 grams of small buds that are ground up, and then it's a gram of keef. So it's even more potent, like per gram, than a power pack. But it's in a tube that's resealable. So you shake it up, mix up the keef and the flour how you want, and then you've got 3 grams of product to go roll your own and seal it back up if you don't, if you just want to roll like a 1 gram joint or whatever. So it's a really cool, another innovative product, and it's at a great price point. And then we got our Flyers product line, which is our pre-rolls, and we got our Eagle extracts, which are our concentrates. But primarily, Claybourne's known for our flower products.
Yeah, and for you guys, one of the things that stood out just for me for a while, and then even talking to your team, knowing that's a big part of your business, are the small buds. Like, it's not new for someone to have minis, or like I said, back in the day, I made a killing off of selling shake. But you guys really like owned that, and I felt like built like not I mean, I guess a product. You built a product line around that, and I think a lot of people is kind of just like, how do we at the bottom of the turkey bag or whatever, obviously there's always going to be some fall off, some small nugs, or every crop is going to have that. And it seems like people just kind of think of an afterthought. How can we not throw this away? How can we still monetize it? Where you guys really saw an opportunity where there's consumer demand, much like I said, what I saw in the past is your heavy consumer that buys a lot and smokes good weed likely isn't that same person that's shelling out, $90 an eighth every single day, right? They're trying to buy in bulk, and that buy, anyone that knows it, if you're rolling up joints or blunts, it doesn't matter if it's a big nug or small nugs, you know, you're breaking it down anyways. And so is that what you guys have seen, is that that demographic for those small buds is really that hardcore smoker who's not just buying it, but buying it pretty religiously?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people fiend for the Claybourne Premium Small Bud, half ounce and 1 ounce especially, because it's just a great deal. I mean, it's great flower. It's available almost everywhere. In our strain selection is awesome, and like I said, there's nothing wrong with the flower just because it's smaller buds. But we just don't want to have that be the presentation in a private
Mhm.
stock or a gold cut product. So yeah, it's a great product, and the people that are buying those are most primarily they're the heavy users, right? The medical customers oftentimes are the ones that are buying ounces because they can buy, 8 ounces at a time in California and things like that. So people that really, really rely on the product, and that's why a lot of times in the premium small but half ounce and 1 ounce, you're going to have very clear and like classic strain selections. Like if you look at our menu right now, we've got a bunch of Durban Poison, for example, a bunch of Chem Dog, for example. Um, we got some of the like newer classics like the wedding cakes and the
Mhm.
GMOs and stuff like that, because those consumers that like those large format sizes that are going to buy an ounce at a time and spend 250 to 350 bucks a pop on a Claybourne purchase, they want the like heavy consistency. They're not the ones that are out there trying to like try this strain today and that strain
Mhm.
tomorrow. Those people are buying grams. Those people are buying eights. That's what those consumers are buying. The folks buying half ounces and 1 ounces, they really rely on it. You'd be surprised how many emails we get a week of people just looking for very specific strains, even just very specific batches. I had this Durban Poison batch, a month ago that had this much THCV in it, and where can I find this batch? Do you have any more? And those are the consumers that are like very, very particular, are those half ounce and 1 ounce consumers. Same thing with the power packs a little bit too, though, because they can really stretch out that 4.5 grams with the keef. And it's like, the keef's testing at 50% THC or so.
Mhm.
It's just extremely high quality keef. They can stretch out their dollar with that product.
And so with that, finding what these consumers want, being able to say that, I'm sure some of it's gut instinct and understand the market, some of it's looking at data, and then clearly you said there's communication not only with the stores but directly with the consumers. What does that feedback loop look like for you guys with consumers? Like how do you guys communicate with consumers?
Listen, there's a lot of people that say they're obsessed with the consumer and stuff, but I can legitimately tell you Claybourne is absolutely obsessed with what our consumers think about us and what our retail customers think about us. So to the extent that, we rely heavily on our retail partners. They generally know all the answers if you just really dig in, because they're at the front line. They see what's going on, right? They see what customers are asking for, so on and so forth. Um, but as the industry progressed and the shelf got more full and more people were creating the products that we started creating originally, we had to go deeper and stay ahead of our competition and make sure that we were getting a continuous feedback loop from our customers, from our consumers. So what we did actually was we put a QR code on every single product, and we developed this program called Curate Claybourne. And curate meaning like curate your experience, curate the brand in general. Tell us what you want to see more of or less of, or what products you want to see in general, and you will take control of curating the Claybourne product portfolio long term. So a lot of great ideas have come directly from our consumers because we have a QR code on the back of every single product. It says, I think it says specifically, Claybourne gives a damn. Scan here and tell us what you thought about our products.
Hmm.
Scan the QR code, takes you through a quick survey, and we get phenomenal feedback on a daily basis from our consumers. Most of it, the vast majority of it is extremely positive. Some of it's negative, but that's how we make changes, right? That's how we evolve as a company. We want all the feedback constantly coming to us. So on a daily basis, our sales team and our management team is getting the Curate Claybourne feedback reports every single day. We're reviewing our Curate Claybourne reports
Hmm.
and using that to guide our retailers into what products they should be carrying, um, you know, guide our product development, all that good stuff. So again, we're absolutely obsessed with the feedback loop from our retail partners and our consumers, and I don't know of anybody else that's gone to that extent to get that information. And our marketing team developed that in house, which was even cooler. One day we were like, "Hey, we need to get more consumer feedback," and like a week later, they were like, "All right, here's how we're going to do it." So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny. I'll say just from us reviewing and getting, purchasing so many products across fucking all over the place. I can't tell you how many QR codes you scan and actually are a broken link. It's actually very, very common.
Yeah,
But it's unique that you guys are using that to push the feedback and even putting that little tagline on there. We give a damn, right? Like getting the mindset of encouraging someone. So how important is it? You said you get a little bit of, a lot of positive feedback, a little bit of negative feedback. How important is the negative feedback? Because I mean, I know personally, right? Like unless it's overwhelmingly positive, that's an indication, all right, we're going the right way. Usually for me personally, like negative feedback is more useful in terms of like making adjustments.
100%. That's you have to get negative feedback. Not everything is all rosy, The 8s, the 9s, the 10 ratings, I mean, yes, those are awesome. It makes us feel good. And it tells us what strains we should grow more of, or where we should guide our breeding program, for example. But what is really important in the here and now is the negative feedback, right? And it can be very simple. Like a good example is our flyers. So our flyers pre-rolls, we offer a 2-pack, a 5-pack, and we offer a 20-pack of flyers joints. Our 2-pack, our customers are having an issue getting the joints out of the glass tube because the neck on the glass tube was too narrow. We didn't realize it until we had Curate Claybourne, and customers are like, I can't get these MF and pre-rolls out of the tube. So immediately we switched over. We got we had a ton of inventory of the other tubes. We threw them in the trash, and we got the new tubes, and now the customers can dump them right out, right? So just all the little things. And then, we obviously go back to our consumers that left us the negative feedback, and we tell them, hey, we fixed this. Go try some product. Let us know what you think. So it's a very powerful tool to engage with our consumers at a different level than I think any other cannabis brand is engaging with their consumers.
Yeah,
It's important for us.
absolutely. I mean, you got to obsess over this. Someone, I don't know who it was, someone on LinkedIn had said that the other day that cannabis is it's a customer service market. It's not, a lot of people put it as retail, but it's like a service of being in service to people. And I think that's a different approach you could take to any business, whether you're B2B or B2C. I think it's a good approach to have to build long lasting relationships with those that are your consumers.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we're shaping what cannabis is going to be in the future. You know what I mean? Especially in California, in my opinion. Everybody's got their own opinion about California cannabis culture and how important it really is. But I mean, I don't think you can knock the fact that cannabis innovation is happening in California more so than probably most other places. And this is an example of one of those things, right? I mean, this is how you stay on the forefront as a business, but then also as a state cannabis market and so on and so forth. But I don't think we know where cannabis is going to be in 5 years. I mean,
No.
who's actually still going to be smoking flower? I don't know. Is there going to be drinking their weed? I have no idea. Right? Some may say that everybody's going to be drinking their weed.
I don't
Once
know.
they get that, figured out to a different level. But
I'll still be smoking, man. So you can count on me. We'll put one down for flower 5 years from now. I don't anticipate.
Same here.
Something that you guys added, I felt like a couple people have done, but from just the outside looking in, you guys seem to early adopt the D2C model in terms of flower brands that hopped on that. What was the time and learning investment it took to start getting that program up and running?
Oh man, we're still trying to figure it out. I'm not gonna lie. We've been D2C for I don't know 7 months now, something like that, and it's a whole different ballgame, man. Like we thought it was gonna be easy. We are naive enough to think, yeah, customers are just out there all looking for Claybourne, but no, you gotta put a lot of effort into making sure your customers even know that they can do it. And it's a fine line, a fine balance, right? Because we're not trying to take our customers away from our brick and mortar retail partners. That's a wasted effort. That's just changing them from one of our retail, customers to a direct customer. And that's not what we're out to do. What we're really out to do with the direct to consumer is capture those consumers that are living in, cannabis deserts in California, where you drive 50 miles or 60 miles and there's no cannabis retail. That's who we're really trying to capture. So will we ever be an Ease or a Grass Door or anything like that? Probably not, right? But the point is to be able to start planting the seed in these cannabis deserts, like I said, where eventually they will have brick and mortar retail, but they don't right now. So let's introduce them to the brand. Let's get them going on Claybourne, before they have ready access to cannabis,
Yeah,
to rec cannabis.
and that brings up another question I had down is in this market there's like two different parts, right? Like some industries there's like a direct sales process where you're just selling to one customer, and in cannabis it's traditionally you sell to a retail, there's a B2B aspect, and then there's B2C. And whether they're coming into the store or not, you still have to, from the brand side, do certain things to leverage that communication or messaging to the end consumer. So you're technically marketing to two complete demographics, and you add D2C in there, and that strengthens that other side of it. So what has your guys' approach been of building relationships and marketing and doing sales on the to the dispensaries and retail outlets, but then also on the other side of that of going to the consumers? How do you guys like segment the two and balance the effort there?
Yeah, I mean, it's really, I don't know, it's kind of one and the same in a way. Like if we're marketing, we have our B2B marketing, and then we have our consumer marketing, whether that's direct to consumer, like we're trying to get them to transact on ClaybourneConnect.com, or we're trying to get them to request Claybourne products when they go into the local dispensary, right? The content that we put out around our ambassadors and stuff like that, really they're kind of dual purpose. It just depends on where the consumer lives, basically, where they're making their purchases. And we regurgitate that exact content in our retail settings. We don't own retail, but in our retail partner settings. I hope that by the end of February, you're going to see hundreds of retailers in California with the Eli Bull Rider video in the lobby, because that's probably a lot cooler for a customer to see than another, shot of a vape cartridge flying through the screen or something like that, like engaging content. And hopefully that engaging content will naturally want them to pick up the Claybourne product when they walk through that door and get helped by a bud tender. So I would say the real effort is on the digital side, I think, is where things really change, because our B2B marketing was really going deep on trying to educate our retail partners and staying front of mind for them through emails and so on and so forth. But then when it comes to the digital marketing to consumers, that's where we had a big learning curve, because frankly, we didn't have anybody on our team that was an expert at digital marketing and how to capture consumers and convert them into customers, whether they're going into brick and mortar retail or buying on Claybourne Connect. So we actually, we had to expand our marketing team for the direct to consumer efforts. I'm still learning, but luckily we got some experts on the team now that are building some really cool campaigns and functionality for us to start actually being a leader in the digital marketing space in cannabis. Because as you also know, it's, you don't just go to Google Ads and say, hey, let me post some, let me get some banner ads of Claybourne, Tropic Fury on your email or something, right? It's not like that. So lots of roundabout things you got to do, and rely heavily on merchandise sites and non-cannabis, related things. But yeah, it's definitely a challenge. But again, that's why we do it in cannabis, because it's just a little bit harder to do everything, but it's also a little bit more gratifying when you get it done. So
absolutely. You got to be creative. There's roadblocks galore in the digital space, but I like that you guys have that approach. That's not something I think we spoke about previously, and I like that you view that approach, because that's something that we actively preach to people, that when a brand creates content, it's multi-purpose, right? If you're whether you're putting out imagery, lifestyle imagery, and connecting brands and products to specific lifestyles, or you're putting out things that tend to be a little more educational, bringing awareness to different components or whatever it is that makes a product unique. I think a lot of brands miss the mark and use it strictly for one or the other, right? They use it strictly. A lot of them get pigeonholed on using it strictly on the consumer, putting it on Instagram and not understanding that same content has value to the bud tenders or to the buyers or to the retail partners. Everybody in here can learn something of what's unique to that product, and the more people that learn it, obviously the better for the brand.
Yep. We're taking, I mean, again, something we learned the hard way, but 2020, this year, 2022, you're going to see a lot of Claybourne content coming out. The Eli video, the Colin video, those are just scratching the surface. We got a lot of awesome things coming out with some some freestyle motocross stuff, some non-sport related things. We've got a chain stitcher that does a lot of chain stitching work for Post Malone. That is a friend of a friend.
Mhm.
We're making him into an ambassador because he loves Claybourne, and we love him because he loves Claybourne, and we're rocking it. So you're gonna see some pretty cool things coming out. That chain stitcher, these makers, these doers, again, just trying to meet the consumer where they are, whether they like chain stitching or not. They probably like Post Malone and the dude that makes the clothes for Post Malone. It
Mhm.
all comes first full circle. But all that content, like you said, has to be the Claybourne message is the Claybourne message. Whether you're putting it out on Instagram or you're trying to express yourself in a retail environment, or you're trying to express yourself with roundabout Google ads, whatever. The message is the message. It doesn't matter where you're putting it, and it's got to be multi-purpose. Otherwise, you're kind of wasting your money. We're all trying to get an ROI on our marketing spend, and if it ain't multi-purpose, probably ain't gonna make the cut.
Amen. Amen. What do you with all this feedback with consumers, and then obviously looking at data, and I mean you've been running a company in the space for a while, so there's a lot of gut instinct I feel like you have to offer. But what do you think the typical cannabis consumer, what are some of the things that matter most to them?
Yeah, that's a good one. By the way, we try our best to never go on gut instinct. We think that that's
Okay.
an area where a lot of other brands falter, and I think that that's why like we have. There's some amazing breeders in the marketplace, right? But there's a reason, in my opinion, why when you see the genetics that hit the market, although there's some really good genetics out there, a lot of times they all kind of start converging in on themselves. They're just a little different, and a real connoisseur can tell the difference, but they all
Mhm.
start kind of converging in. So even when we go to like our breeding program and things like that, our breeding program is one of the main reasons we have Curate Claybourne is to take that data. You know, people love Durban Poison or any high terpinolene strains, right? And we start, our breeding program is heavily focused on high terpinolene strains because breeders just haven't really. There's some breeders that have, but the vast majority of new genetics that hit the market are heavy cake, gelato, cookies hybrids. Um, Not enough going in that direction of true sativa lovers that want like a true like Durban Poison type experience, but a new Durban Poison experience, right?
Mm.
Um, but point being, we try not to go with our gut, and the consumers listen. It's like what I said earlier about the large format sizes. One of the unique things at Claybourne that we get to do is that we have so many products. We get to see what the different consumers really like. So, like the large format sizes, like the half ounces and 1 ounces, they like consistency. They're not out for the next new genetics for the most part. They like what they like what they like. But it has to be consistent. It's got to be high quality. And I think what a lot of people miss is there's a quality to price factor here. You know what I mean? Like um, cannabis consumers within the pricing bands are not very they're price sensitive once they're in their pricing band. Like I'm not
Mhm.
spending more than $50 on an eight, you know. But they'll spend 40 to 50, depending on the quality or the brand or what experience they've had with the brand in the past. Um, but like I said, it just depends on the price point, what customers want. So on the flip side, from the large format sizes, you talk about like gold cuts, for example. Like those customers, generally speaking, want the new, like they want to try the new stuff. I'll spend $70. I'm a connoisseur. I know what I'm talking about. They're typically the most harsh, right?
Mhm.
In terms of their criticism, they either love it, they're going to compare you to antibiotics, they're going to compare you to Connected and Alien Labs and all the other brands that have a certain aura around them, or they're going to hate it and they're going to rip you a new one. But that's you learn from that stuff. Um, so to answer your question directly, it just depends
Mm.
on it depends really on the price point that the consumer is shopping and what their like real consumption um, needs and I guess like consumption levels are, right? Like how much they're really consuming on a weekly basis. Because a lot of connoisseurs, they're not consuming an ounce a week because they got, back pain that they can't figure out how to cope with. It's a different mentality. And, you got to be able to service all of them to some extent when you're a flower company. But quality, repeatability, the dependability of the brand, how fresh is the product when I pick it up from the retailer shelves. We actually incentivize our retailers to not place big orders. There's a little secret about Claybourne. We actually incentivize our retailers to go wide. We call it wide, not deep. Like, I would really rather you buy, 4 strains and a QP of each than buy a pound of one strain. I'll deliver it to you next week, man, if you really, really need more. Or I'll deliver it to you tomorrow if you really, really need more. But I want the consumer to have the best experience possible with our products. And when it comes to the storage of flower and things like that, the market isn't where it needs to be, really, in terms of like this, in terms of how the knowledge of flower, right? And the fact that it's a perishable product. It's analogous to produce, in my opinion, in terms of the way that you need to store it and keep it fresh, and it's got a shelf life. There's a little education that needs to go on, I guess, in the market from a retailer and brand distributor perspective. So we're all in alignment on that. But it's all about making sure that your product is high quality on the shelf, and your consumers can have a good experience with it.
He's dropping gems out there. He said, "Don't buy too much, man. We got to keep it fresh for the consumer," and that's probably a little bit different, right? That the traditional sales focused approach is slang it and bang it, man. Take as
Seems
much
backwards.
as you can take it. Yeah,
Seems backwards. And even some of our retailers, like it takes time to get them to convert in their head. Like, bro, you don't need a pound of this, dude. I'll deliver you more tomorrow. So yeah.
consumer focus. And I mean, it's clearly working out for you guys. You guys are, moving volume. When you look at the flower market in California, you guys are, like certain categories, you guys are at the top. I think overall for all products, I think last year you guys were close in the top 15 brands, I think, correct? Or might have even cracked the top 10 for sales volume.
So for all categories, I think we ended last year at like number 12 or something like that.
Okay.
We look at headset and BDS, but number 12 or something like that for all categories. But flower, we're generally anywhere between number 1 and number 4 in terms of flower, which is very interesting because the top 4 brands are always, like we talked about earlier, price segmentation. The top 4 brands, there's always an extremely top shelf, like Cannabiotics, like that's all they do is that $60 to $75 rate. And you got Claybourne, one price point below that. You got like the Glasshouse Farms of the world, one price point below that. And you got the Pack Stones of the world, one price point below that. So the top 4 brands, we're always flip-flopping. But it's very interesting how it works in California, where, the top 4 brands are made up of 4 distinct price points, which, you talk about data and stuff. I can talk all day about that type of thing.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with that kind of thing. And it's always very interesting to me that that's how it always works out in California.
That's, I haven't even thought of that, but it's very apparent because I look at that those same data sets. So I like that. And even your approach of just the consumers, the consumer bands, you know what you're talking about. Your approach to this methodically, and I didn't even think about that, servicing all those. And interesting, it's not, you don't see multiple top shelf brands or 2 of the same, right? You don't see a Pepsi and a Coke doing it out. It's people filling different gaps in the market.
Exactly. And with cannabis, it's all about owning your lane of pricing. When it comes to flower, at least. When it comes to concentrates, I guess that's also a similar thing because you got your Raw Gardens of the world that absolutely dominate concentrates, but second is typically going to be your 710 Labs. So you got your value, high quality value, and then you've just got your absolute connoisseur level, which I guess would be kind of analogous to like your Pack Stone and your Cannabiotics. So it's very interesting, I guess, how that all works.
So what has the approach been for you guys to scale to that level? Flower is a difficult category to scale, right? If you're making edibles and you're just putting distillate in edibles, like it's very easy to scale. Distillate or even distillate carts, those are very easy, or I won't say very easy because none of this is easy, but much easier to scale than flower.
Yeah.
What have been some of the components and things you guys have had to adjust and pay attention to when scaling a flower brand?
Man, we talk a lot about sales and marketing, but the reality is you got to have like world class operations, man. That's what it's all really. That's what it all really comes down to. You know, that's where the rubber meets the road. You got to get that product to the retail customers quick, and it's got to be consistently produced from the mom room to the clone room to the packaging room and all the infinite steps in between. They're all important, and from a scaling perspective, that's where the focus is, right? Because you got to be able to produce and put out high quality, consistent product because consumers don't forget about bad experiences. And you got to be able to do it consistently, regardless if you're putting out, 100 pounds a month or you're putting out, 1,500 pounds a month. You got to be able to do it consistently. And as you're growing and you're bringing new consumers onto your brand, you got to continue to offer them that same experience. And like a lot of brands, 2020 is really like back into 2019, beginning of 2020. That's when Claybourne really popped, and we just really, really took off. And we took it all, in stride. I think we did a pretty good job of keeping our quality control, tight. And I think that answers your question. I mean, it's really all about the operations. You got to be able to scale your sales approach and stuff like that. Salespeople are just so important to the business, marketing's got to be in the store. You got to be on top of the consumer trends and all that stuff. You can't be a desk jockey in cannabis. Like if you're not in the store, you're disconnected automatically because you got a competitor out there that is in the store. When we started Claybourne, I was the first salesperson. We'd be packing. We'd be packing our eighths and our ounces at night, and then we'd go deliver them the next day. And that's how we built it, brick by brick. We built our grow with our own two hands, and just gives you a different appreciation in terms of how to scale the business and how to do it very methodically and profitably and stuff like that. So you can continue to scale the team, that supports the effort. So, yeah. Long-winded answer.
No, but it's good, and I don't think there's enough emphasis, especially usually, a lot of our conversations tend to be more on the marketing side. That's just more of what we're nerds about, and we do a little bit of. But I think the operations aspect is absolutely essential to scale any business, but especially, when you're talking about an agriculture good that's an incredibly sensitive plant at that, right? It's very difficult to replicate things over and over, and doing that at scale becomes increasingly harder.
And you got to be ready because shit happens for sure. Nobody's perfect, especially when you're talking about cultivation and you're bringing on new genetics and stuff. Man, you got to be ready because shit happens, and you got to have the cash to be able to get through those issues and things like that. But not every crop is the same. Somebody on here put Claybourne Cushmits. We love our Cushmits, but man, it took a while to get that cut to really perform like it does now. It took us 2 years to get that cut to just really be dialed. Where it's yielding very consistently. The cure is always very consistent in terms of the timing and everything, and all the way down to the packaging. When do you put it in the jar? When do you seal that thing up? That all matters. And flower's just, if you can make it in flower, if you can make it in California cannabis, you can make it anywhere, in my opinion. But if you can make it in California flower, I mean, you can do anything at that point because the plant is finicky, man. The plant is finicky, and it's a perishable product, and people got to think about it that way.
Yeah, I don't think it's not that I don't think, I know the average consumer doesn't understand like what the difficulty that it takes, like you said, dialing into genetic, because it's like, does it look right? Because if it doesn't look right in the bag, it's not going to sell. Is it producing the right THC? Because if it's not hitting the right percentage, it won't sell, even if you as a breeder or company, like it. And then it's like, does it, yield right, makes it financially viable to continue to grow? Like there's so many different things that have to be, it has to check so many boxes. Whereas an average consumer could pick up something and be like, oh, I love this. And then you as the company could be like, oh, dude, that's the fucking worst for, this reason. We can't keep it consistent, or it doesn't yield enough for us to keep in production. And I don't think the consumer doesn't understand like all these different
No,
components that
it's
you have.
hilarious because like, yeah, it's hilarious because when you're like in the business, right? My partner Brent, who runs our breeding and cultivation, every time I'm like, damn, that one is amazing. He's like, oh, that one fucking sucks. It's so hard to do. There's always something, right? It's like, come on, man. Cushman's though is one that it's dialed, But that's what it comes down to sometimes, right? Like gold cuts, they could be so good, but it's not like you're selling them at a higher price just because they're so good. Sometimes you got to sell them at the higher price, otherwise you can't sell them because they don't yield for shit or whatever, So it's rare to find something that checks literally all the boxes. We have a couple that check all the boxes, but it's pretty rare to find varieties that literally check all the boxes.
Yeah, it's different. I mean, that's even for us when we review and rate, rate strains, we put it on 10 different things and we say like even the best of the best, it's not going to hit a 10 on everything, because the most potent thing usually isn't the best tasting thing, and like you know what I mean? There's certain
Yeah.
components that like sometimes being really good in one category just naturally are going to take away from another category. So it's like when you're growing something like this, it's impossible at times to check every single box possible.
Yep.
And then on that, the THC, I try to ask every guest this because I just feel like this conversation continually needs to be had. But the THC conversation, everyone in the industry, says it doesn't matter, but the consumer seems to buy off it, which drives the buyers to buy off it. So what's your take on THC percentage and what really matters about that?
So since day one, when we launched our brand, we were, I think, until very recently, the only brand in California that did full cannabinoid and terpene profile breakdowns on all of our packages, right? I'm not talking about just like posting up what the total terpene content is, or posting up with, the state mandated THC and total cannabinoids and CBD, right? I'm talking about the top 5 cannabinoids and the top 5 terpenes. And that was all to try to start building this mindset of, and we used to have a poster. You can find this poster in a lot of the retail break rooms and things like that, or in their showrooms. It says it's not all about the THC, and it goes through, the benefits of certain terpenes and certain cannabinoids and so on and so forth. But the main point is, it says big bold letters on the top, says it's not all about the THC. But the reality is, connoisseurs right now are the only ones that know it's not all about THC. And the connoisseurs, in my opinion, are a very loud, very vocal, but small subsegment of the consumer base. The rest of the consumer base is like price for potency. And it's pretty sad because the retailers have to do what they have to do, right? They think that like if they don't have a 35%er on the menu, the consumer's going to walk out. They're going to go to the next shop that's got a 35% on the menu. And therefore it never balances itself out, right? It never just solves itself in terms of the consumer constantly potency chasing products. No matter how much education you do, we've been trying to educate customers for the past 3 years as one of the biggest brands in California. They don't give a shit about that stuff, to be honest. The connoisseurs do, and they get it, which I love. The rest of them don't care. They're thinking about dollars and cents for the most part, And they can understand that indoor flower, there's something unique about it, and the experience is generally speaking more consistent and more, whatever you want to say, right? More clean, whatever. So that they'll play within those pricing tiers, like I said earlier, right? Because you can find a 35% THC for $25 all day, anywhere. But if it was all about potency and it was only like really only about potency, then everybody the consumers would only be buying $25 to $35 eighths that are testing over 30% THC. Yet I got mad respect for cannabinoids. Cannabinoids often, like most of their products that I see on the shelf, they're not over 30% THC. They're that 26 to 29% THC, and they're one of the top selling brands in California, and they're the most expensive. Connoisseurs love cannabinoids, right? And they've just taken a different approach with that education piece, I guess, and just they obviously also grow extremely high quality flower, but it's not going to solve itself until testing is normalized, basically. And even when testing is normalized and there's standardized methodologies in California for how to test things like THC and microbials and pesticides, it's not going to solve itself. But even when there's still going to be certain THC contents. There are always going to be certain varieties that naturally test higher in THC, like the ChemDog hybrids and a lot of the cake hybrids and stuff like that. They're always going to test higher in THC than the gelatos and things like that, generally speaking. And we'll see what happens, because even when testing is standardized, there's still going to be high THC stuff and low THC stuff, and it's all about what you prefer as a consumer. And it's going to be a long time before price per potency is not a thing anymore, if it ever is a thing, right. if it ever goes away,
Right. Yeah, and it's crazy. The standardization of testing is wild, because even I spend a lot of time in the California market, I have a lot of clients down there, but I live in Washington, and like THC everywhere. I mean, East Coast here, THC is definitely the main contributor to sales at retail, I think, by volume in any state. But it's in Washington, it's like you don't see near as many cannabis testing at over 30%, whereas you go to California, that's kind of almost like the baseline of like what people judge. And like me as a consumer, at least up in Washington, a lot of the bud that I like is from smaller craft guys that, like you're speaking to the connoisseur, so they don't necessarily care about that, and they don't grow a ton of volume, so they don't concern. But I just bought an eighth the other day, and then it was loud, and I looked at it and it was like 17% THC, and I was just like, how do these guys even like sell? Like, I don't care. I don't even look at it. I didn't even look at it till I was done smoking it. But I was like, man, this would never sell in California. But it's
hell no
kill. It is some straight kill, man.
Dude, 35 is the new 30 now in California. I'm talking about THC, not even total cannabinoids, man.
Yeah.
Now people are looking at you weird if your shit tests between 30 and 35. They're like, wait, but everything else on this menu over here from this other brand's 35 to 39. What's up with that? It's like, I don't know, man. I'm over it.
Yeah.
Either buy it or don't.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. We can only hope. I've been waiting for some retail guys to like focus. I've spoke to some that say they do it, but I'm waiting for some retail people to really just beat people over the head with that. Like, people start talking about THC and to train their budtenders and be like, no, bro, like, fuck, don't look at that. Don't look at that.
They're trying.
Leave the store. Leave the store if that's what.
Oh yeah, that. I don't think
any
business owner's going to do that. No, I don't think anybody's going to do that. I wouldn't want to do that. No, but they're trying. They're trying. Every shop has those one or two bud tenders, that are like heavy on the terpenes and the education, and they'll speak till they're blue in the face, advocates for terpenes instead of THC. But it's an uphill battle, but we're along for the ride. That's what I'm saying. We've been along for the ride since day one. We set our products up to be able to, for those one or two bud tenders in every shop, we set ourselves up for them to be able to talk to our products better than other products, basically. So, but it still isn't working, I guess. So.
Yeah.
We're not changing the world.
Yeah, I was doing God's work, man. Trying to tell him THC percentage doesn't matter. What is Claybourne else? I mean, you alluded to it. You had a lot of content coming this year, but what's on the docket for 2022?
We got a lot of new genetics sitting in the Gold Cuts line and the private stock line. Brent did a lot of work, a lot of really good work last year. Very interesting hybrids that will be, like I said, released in the Gold Cuts line and in the private stock line. We're hoping to be able to come out with some solventless products early on in the year. We still don't have any solventless products, and that's obviously the way of the future. We got some secret stuff too that I don't want to talk about right now, but trying to leave a little bit of stuff in the back pocket. But from a content perspective, you're going to see us go deep on the athlete, just the ambassador stuff in general, right? Trying to be first to market with that in a big way, right? Where we're actually putting content together, where Claybourne is kind of the secondary in the content, which is, seems backwards, but it's about trying to engage with the consumer outside of just cannabis. So, like, we do a lot of events that are non-cannabis events. Of course, we go to the cannabis events, right? But we go to just as many, if not more, non-cannabis events, whether they be the local dirt bike track, or we went to a fishing expo in Long Beach a couple weekends ago. I mean, fishermen smoke a lot of weed. you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so again, trying to engage the consumer and build consumers outside of where they're just being bombarded with cannabis content in dispensaries and whatnot.
Awesome. Well, I love it. We look forward to that, man. Nick, I really appreciate you hopping on the podcast and talking cannabis today. And wish you guys nothing but success for the rest of the year, man. Well, not just this
Thanks, man.
year and beyond, you know,
Oh
2022
yeah, I
and
appreciate
beyond.
that.
You know?
Appreciate that. Cool, man.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. This is the RMR podcast, episode 26 with Claybourne Cannabis.